Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're checking out the new releases from Prevail, Five Finger Death Punch, Conan, Parasite Inc., and Soilwork. Thank you for helping me there. There's a lot to remember.
A mouthful.
I think this is the first time we've ever done 5 new releases in one video, so we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, it's either the first time or the first time in a long time, because this is not often for this many notable albums to come out at once.
So obviously with 5 albums and 2 of us here, we got, we could probably blab for a long time. We're going to try to keep this as concise as possible because these are just first initial impressions, and obviously we'll tell you at the end of the video which album we're going to review through the week. So I'll start off just by talking about Conan, since it's the first thing on my page of notes here. I felt like this album was fine. It's basically what you would expect from this band. It's just heavy down-tuned distortion, very sludgy sounding. Good for background music, but nothing I'd really feel like I'd ever want to put on in the foreground and put on to enjoy. We have listened to Conan before on this channel, and we've liked their stuff. Nothing bad about it, just kind of good for background music.
I feel pretty similar to yourself with Conan. I mean, it's, really good as background music. There's not really much depth to any of their stuff, so if you're really looking for that, you won't really find it with this album. But if you want something good to just throw on and vibe with, there you go. Some of the songs are pretty long. The shorter ones feel a bit more cohesive, but you put on the last track, which is 14.5 minutes, and you just kind of just chill with it. At least that's what I noticed.
Yeah, just to put it out there, the album's called Evidence of Immortality. It's 50 minutes long and it's only 6 songs, just to give you an idea of what these songs are like. Anyways, on to the next one, Five Finger Death Punch. Their album is called Afterlife. We've covered this band on the channel before. Twice, yeah. We try to give this band a chance because, we don't know why. We just do. We don't hate the band. We just hate the direction they're going, or not fans of it, right? When this band first came out on the scene back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, they put out a couple pretty solid albums. And my hope and my wish and my thinking is that maybe they'll go back to that one day. Maybe they'll go back to the roots. And they just don't. They're constantly going down this dad rock type of, or dad metal type of avenue where they're aiming for the radio hits and all the songs are soft and accessible and all this stuff. I wasn't feeling it. I basically skipped through half the songs. Not for me.
I mean, when I was listening to this album, I thought to myself that if you go into this album with an expectation of them sounding like their old sound, you're going to hate it. Because I feel like at this point, they have settled with the sound they're at right now, which I would say is a little bit more of a hard rock direction than the metal direction that they had when they first started.
Yeah.
So if you go into this thinking, oh, it's going to sound like The Way of the Fist or War is the Answer, it's just not there. They're not that band anymore. I do think it's a good album, and I would say it's pretty on par with the last album they released, which was titled Fate, which was a good album. And I think this is pretty comparable. There's a little bit that I like more, a little bit that I like less. I think it's just comparable in the sense that, it's got some good stuff. There's a song or two that I like more. Specifically, there's one, Pick Up Behind You. That one stood out as a pretty good track, but otherwise, it's fine. Just don't go into it expecting anything like their old stuff. They're pretty set in what they got.
If you like the last album, you'll probably like this one.
Exactly.
Prevail. So their new album is called True Power. This is a band I've never really listened to before, but I've kind of known about them for a long time. And it was pretty much what I expected they were going to sound like. This basically like a metalcore band, maybe a little emo-y. But then I started getting surprised because they started having a lot of these new metal elements that give me some nostalgic feelings and taking me back with this like rapping in there, like rap metal, some Linkin Park vibes, the down-tuned, palm-muting type of grungy riffs you hear in that old new metal stuff from the early 2000s. It kind of was giving me that feeling. I was like, wow, this actually has some pretty cool stuff. A couple songs that stood out to me was track number 3, Body Bag, track number 11, Choke, and track number 14, Visceral, was a cool song. Had this really cool new metal bounce, but the chorus kind of was a little bit poppy, maybe ruined the song, but those things could grow on you. Overall, I was actually kind of surprised at how much I did dig this album, thinking I was going to hate it at the beginning.
Well, I wasn't entirely surprised with this album. Now, I haven't really listened to this band much either before today, but I went thinking like, okay, this might be, what you kind of described, metalcore, kind of emo-y sound, and that's exactly kind of what I found. Wasn't bad per se, but I feel like it kind of caters to a very specific audience, and if you like that kind of stuff, you'll love this album. But I kind of felt as it was going, I'm like, have I really, I didn't feel like there was anything new to the table here.
Yeah.
When you did mention, the new metal kind of sounding stuff, I think about it now. Yes, perhaps there was a little bit of that in there, but overall, by near the end of the album, there's like 15 tracks on this album. I kind of started skipping some stuff because I'm like, well, am I really going to get much more out of this album than what I've already heard? Didn't really feel like it, but the tracks that you mentioned, I did like those tracks. I kind of found the tracks that have more of a brutal sounding title are the ones that sound harder, and that's exactly what it is, and I did like those tracks. So it's fine, just doesn't feel like it's anything, super spectacular, new, or overly special to me.
Yeah, so next on the list is Parasite Inc. Their album's called Cyan Night Dreams, which I think is a very cool sounding album title.
Cool sounding album title with a phenomenal album artwork.
Album art's really cool.
So cool.
So this is the one I was most hyped for today because we covered Parasite Inc. on the channel. We reviewed their last album, which was called
Dead and Alive.
Dead and Alive. And it got 2 toe tags.
It did.
It was highly rated on this channel. So I have this image in my head of what this band sounds like, how much I like them, blah, 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 blah. I was pretty underwhelmed with this album. I listened to it a couple times, so I was underwhelmed after the first listen. It has some decent riffs, some good groove sections, some good stuff going for it, but I feel like the band has taken a turn towards accessibility with a lot less aggressive of a sound, and there's a lot more synth integration than there was on the previous album. A lot of bands are using synth these days. It's nothing new, but I felt like it was a lot more prevalent on this album than the band used to do. And that was something that I didn't really like at first. When I listened to it again for the second time, it started to grow on me a little bit more. I started thinking, okay, this is actually not that bad. I actually don't mind this too much. But at the end of the day, it still left me with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. There are some songs that stood out to me. I Am, which is track number 2. Some good intro. It's just after the intro track, but it's got some good energy. The title track is not bad. It's very synth infused. In False Light sounded good. That's track number 5, and track number 8 is also pretty unique in the way the synth is used on this song. I thought that was pretty cool. So overall, I didn't hate it, but maybe my expectations were set in the wrong place, and the band did try some new stuff. It might be worth giving it more of a chance to see if it can, grow and if you can appreciate the changes that they've done. Because it's not fun to just hate on bands for trying new things. That's not fair. You got to give them a chance. So it was okay, but not what I expected.
Yeah, I haven't heard this band since we checked them out back in 2018, so it's kind of hard to really exactly recall what their sound was, but the fact that we both kind of noticed there's a lot more synth on this album means it's probably true, and I think it's pretty cool how they used it, and I like that gave the album a lot more character. I thought overall the album was pretty good. Didn't really blow my mind or anything, but I still enjoyed what I heard. I liked the title track, I like Follow the Blind, and both of these songs have really cool uses of synthesizer in it. And I feel like that's just kind of the direction of this album. But overall, I feel like there were some moments where it kind of sounded like what I remember from this band, but I don't really think they were trying to go in a more accessible direction. And I remember, you said that to me before I checked out the album, so I kind of had that in mind. But as I was listening, I didn't really think that they were trying to go a lot more audience friendly. It just felt like they were just trying a different overarching sound, which is a lot more synthesized and maybe even more melodic aspects to it than the last record. But I still think it was pretty good.
Fair enough. Last album of the day that we're going to talk about today is Soilwork's new album.
Titled?
The title is Swedish. I think it's Overgiven Hatten or Overgiven Haten or something like that. I don't know. There's some weird accent dots on the O. I don't know if that makes it a different sound or not. Probably. I have no idea. I'm not Swedish, so if somebody can correct me in the comments, that's fine and dandy. Anyways, Soilwork. These guys have been around for a long time. Listened to them before. Checked them out several times throughout my years.
This is the first time covering them on the channel.
First time covering them on the channel. But it's a band that never really impressed me. They've never done anything that I've went, whoa, cool, I love Soilwork. Nothing like that. I don't own any of their albums. So I could say this is the first time I've probably really gotten into an album by Soilwork. So I start listening to it and I go, okay, this is basically what I would expect from a Swedish melodic death metal band. They all kind of have a very similar sound. That's the style. It's the thing, right? Listened to it for the first time. pretty good. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, just whatever. Listened to it a second time. I think I did 2.5 listens on this album. It was growing on me pretty fast. I was starting to like the vocals a lot of clean vocals on here. The guy's voice is pretty good. Some good harmony type of things. The riffs are good. Songs like number 5, Is It In Your Darkness? Super catchy. Riffs are really good. Really good energy. Track number 9 stood out to me. That's called This Godless Universe. Has a really cool build-up with a really cool sounding drum intro that leads into a blast beat. But then there's this, I think it's a violin, I could be wrong, it's some type of stringed instrument like a violin, playing on top of the blast beat, and there's a really cool contrast there that gels very well. Just really cool stuff. I think that's probably the highlight of the album for me so far. That's track number 9. And then track number 11, just want to note that it's called The Everlasting Flame. It's a violin interlude. Again, might not be exactly a violin, but it's an instrument similar, like a violin. But it sounded very pretty, very nice. And if you watch our review of the Last Arch Enemy album, Deceivers, I was complaining about an interlude being towards the end of the album, and this time I'm kind of complimenting it. But I don't know, it seemed to work. I'm not sure why, but overall this album grew on me quite fast as far as my few short listens that I had. So I think it was pretty good.
You know, if I were to describe how I feel about this album after listening to it for the first time in a single word, that word would be epic.
Epic.
This album blew my fucking mind. Like, first song starts, the intro is great, and the song is a lot of fun, and I was feeling the vibes from this album that I would get when I was discovering all these prog metal bands way back in the day when, you know, I first started getting into that. Like, there were so many catchy moments, so many awesome riffs, a fantastic vocal performance throughout the entire album. It's just awesome, like song after song. Ooh, that's cool, ooh, ah, like I'm just going on this tour of some beautiful place, just thinking ooh and ah with all this stuff. There's in a song called Electric Again, there's this cool string solo. Not sure if it's a violin or viola, not entirely sure, one of those. Really cool solo that happens there. The variety of this album is awesome. It feels like sometimes it's a melodic death metal album, sometimes it's a prog album, it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's just constantly mixing between those, and it's awesome. But yeah, overall, just such a cool mix of stuff going on. There's another song called Dreams of Nowhere. That song sounds like it could come straight out of Guilty Gear. Honestly, it totally sounds like something out of that. I'm thinking, if I listen to a Guilty Gear song, what the hell? This is awesome. Just overall, amazing album. I loved it.
Yeah, so we were kind of tossing between whether to cover Soilwork's album or Parasite Inc. album throughout the week, and I think we're both more pleased with Soilwork over Given Heaton or over Given Hatin or over Given Hotten or whatever the fuck. I'm so sorry. So we're going to review Soilwork through the week, and it'll be our first time reviewing a Soilwork album. So we're excited about that, and yeah, that's it for this video, guys. So leave your thoughts down below about all these new albums that dropped today. Your thoughts on all of them. Do you think we made the right choice by choosing Soilwork? Maybe we chosen a different one. Who knows? Anyways, be sure to come back next week and see our full and final review of the album when we drop it next week. That's it for this video, guys. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Keep those heads banging.